Hello, everybody, and welcome to Command Point. I'm Shane, as usual, and we are here with yet another episode of the Fireteam Breakdown series. This episode was nominated by B. Norris over on Patreon, and we are going to be taking a look at the Dire Avenger Fireteam for the Craftworld team. So, Craftworld is a faction that we have talked very briefly about since the game has come out. Compared to last edition, Craftworld in general seems to be a bit more limited, I suppose. That being said, they have, I believe, four different fire teams, that they can take. One of which that we're going to be talking about today is the Dire Avenger fire team. And in my opinion, this might be their best fire team? I don't know. I mean, it's kind of up in the air. What we're going to do first is we're just going to take a look at the composition of the team itself. So first of all, the archetypes, you can take Seek and Destroy, Security, and Recon. Not a huge fan of Recon with this team. In general, I think that two APL teams just don't like Recon secondaries that much, at least in my opinion. Seek and Destroy and Security I can potentially see though. Just because those secondaries seem to be a little bit easier to get for a lot of teams. Anyway, so the fire team itself has 4 Dire Avenger warriors. And if you don't have a leader and you want your leader to be a Dire Avenger Exarch, you can do that by replacing a warrior with the Exarch. Now, in my opinion, from what I've seen so far of Craftworld, the Dire Avenger Exarch seems like it might be a must-take model. Just because it's the only leader option that Craftworld get that can really kit itself out, that really feels like it stacks up to some of the really strong leaders in the game. So, you can equip the Dire Avenger Exarch with either twin Avenger Shuriken Catapults, Avenger Shuriken Catapult and Fists, which is just the normal outfit, or you can give it a Dire Sword or Power Weapon paired with a Shimmer Shield or Shuriken Pistol. So, we'll get into exactly how strong these options are and what you should be going with as we get to the Dire Avenger Exarch datasheet. But let's take a look first at the regular Dire Avenger warrior and what it is that they can take. So, 3 circle movement, 2 APL, group activation 1, 4 up save, and 8 wounds. So, kind of basic. Not a super durable chassis, not a super easy to kill chassis either. It's armed with an Avenger Shuriken Catapult, which is basically the same thing as a bolt gun, except it has balanced and rending. So it's pretty strong. Having the free reroll with balance is really nice. And just the upside to crit twice with rending, I think really puts it above bolt guns. So definitely a decent weapon. It's only going to take you so far though. Against like power armor models, this might not be enough to consistently put you over the edge. But it also has fists, just 3 attacks, hitting on 3s, damage 2-3, very weak. At least it hits on 3s, right? So yeah. And all Dire Avengers have the defense tactics ability. So basically, when they overwatch, you don't worsen the ballistic skill. So they're overwatching on 3s. The problem with this, though, is that typically the smallest kill team you're going to have with Craftworld is going to be 8 models. And this means that you're actually not going to be getting that much overwatch off if you're getting any at all. So if you're against an elite team, you're just never going to get to use this ability, or I guess make use of this ability. And if you're against a horde team, I mean, best case scenario, you might be getting 3 or 4 overwatches off, in which case I'd say you're getting your money back. But a lot of the time, you're not going to get to use this. And if you do, it'll be once or twice. So not huge. If this was an elite team with an ability like this would be really, really strong. But Craftworld is not an elite kill team. Yeah. So let's take a look at the Dire Avenger Exarch, which, like I mentioned before, I think is the best leader option that Craftworld get. So it's got all these different options. It's got a bunch of different things that it can make use of. So first we've got the Avenger Shuriken Catapult that we mentioned. It's hitting on 2s because this is the leader that we're talking about. You can give it a Shuriken Pistol, which is basically it's just a 6-inch range pistol with rending. Now, uniquely to the Dire Avenger X arc, it can take twin Avenger Shuriken catapults, so it's got like 2. In the last edition, this was a really strong model because you could shoot twice with it. So here, let's compare it. Instead of being 2 guns that you shoot twice, it's its own profile. So look at this as its own gun, separate from the single Avenger Shuriken catapult, and let's look at the differences. So both of them have 4 shots. The twin Avenger Shuriken catapults hit on 3s, same damage, except it has relentless instead of balanced. So honestly, just the profile alone, this isn't that different, I feel, from how the regular Avenger Shuriken catapult performs. So with relentless, you're basically not guaranteeing, but you're guaranteeing that you're going to get 3 to 4 hits through. You're re-rolling everything, hitting on 3s. The Avenger Shuriken catapult, you're not re-rolling everything, you're just re-rolling 1 die, but you're hitting on 2s. So when you think about it, you're shooting 4 times. You don't expect to roll more than a single 1 the vast majority of the time, and the one that you do re-roll, you're just going to use balanced on, and you're going to make sure it's a hit in all likelihood. So you're probably getting 4 hits with this, and you're probably getting 4 hits with this. I just, right off the bat, it seems like they perform very similarly. However, this unique action out here, Shuriken Storm, it's 2 AP. So this is only a 2 APL model, but it's 2 AP. And this only opens up to you if you have twin Avenger Shuriken catapults. So let's go over it. You make 2 shooting attacks with this operative's twin Avenger Shuriken catapult, so 4 attacks turns into 8. When making those shooting attacks, ignore the weapon's relentless special rule. So you get 8 shots, but you ignore relentless. So you're not re-rolling everything. It's treated as a shoot action, and it can only perform this if it's equipped with the twin Avenger Shuriken catapult. So basically, what you're doing is you're giving yourself 8 shots instead of 4, but you're getting rid of relentless. Overall, I think what this ends up being is you're probably gonna get, it's not gonna perform that much better. I think. You're probably going to get 5 to 6 hits instead of 4. Honestly, it seems to me, I don't know if it's worth taking this for Shuriken Storm. On top of that, it's 2 AP, so you're not going to be moving outside of ploys and stuff, which admittedly, Craft World do have a lot of ploys for movement, but yeah, it's not incredible. It's not going to, if it was 8 shots with Relentless, you keep it, that would be incredible. But basically the utility here is you can shoot at one thing and then shoot at another thing. Yeah, I'm not sure. So let's take a look at the other options. They could take a Dire Sword, which is 4 attacks, hitting on 2s, damage 4/5, lethal 5, and rending. This is very good. This is a really, really good profile. Rending with lethal 5, they work so well together. On 4 attacks, hitting on 2s, damage 4/5. So you're going to crit almost always with this. You're going to get at least 1 5-up, and then you can turn that 5-up. But you can use that 5-up with rending to get another crit. So your odds of getting 2 crits with the Dire Sword are really, really high, actually. And that is super vital, I think. And obviously, this is competing with the power weapon. So the power weapon, we all know what it is. It's damage 4/6. Hitting on 2s, lethal 5. It just doesn't have rending. So it's 1 extra damage for, you're basically getting rid of 1 extra crit damage to get rending. I really don't, it's hard to, this is the kind of the story for the Dire Avenger X arc. It's got a lot of options, but I feel like a lot of those options end up performing very similarly. So the Dire Sword here, the odds of you getting 2 crits, like I mentioned, is really high. And what's going to happen is those 2 crits are going to become 10 damage, right? Because it's 2 5s. And the power weapon, you're really likely to get 1 crit and then 1 normal hit, which is going to end up being 10 damage, kind of like the Dire Sword. I think I would lean in the direction of the Dire Sword just because, at the end of the day, that second crit is harder to parry whereas in the event that you get 2 hits of the power weapon, one's a crit and one's a normal hit, you can crit them and then your opponent ends up just parrying the other one. Whereas with the Dire Sword, you crit them once and you have another crit that they might not be able to parry. Getting into the minutia of these weapons, the performance is very similar. Obviously, I think the power weapon is going to have a higher ceiling for how good it can be, because there's the upside of doing 12 damage with 2 crits, whereas the upside here is doing 10 damage with 2 crits. So I think it really just depends on what it is that you're up against. If you're playing against Marines, for instance, or something with more than 10 wounds, I think you're better off going with the power weapon just for that upside. Neither of these weapons are going to let you down that often, just because of the efficiency of hitting on 2s and lethal 5. So, I mean, just make sure that when you're using these weapons, or when you're picking in that muster phase, that you know exactly what you're up against and what would be best. So if you're over 10 wound models on the other side, like a Marine or like Grey Knights or something, I would probably lean the power weapon. But outside of that, I really like the reliability, the additional reliability of the Dire Sword. And I say additional reliability because, like I said, both of these are super reliable, super strong options. And the alternative to the Shuriken pistol, if you're taking one of the melee weapons, is the Shimmer Shield. So basically, when you have a Shimmer Shield, friendly Dire Avengers within 2 inches of the Exarch, including the Exarch itself, get a 5-up invulnerable save. I think this is the way to go, personally. The Shuriken pistol isn't super strong, honestly. And as is, the Exarch does have a little bit of a vulnerability to armor piercing. So giving it the Shimmer Shield, I think, could be really useful in certain matchups. If you don't think you're going to be moving up against any AP, then I guess just go the Shuriken pistol and try and utilize that as much as you can. And of course, it has defense tactics, like I mentioned. I suppose defense tactics would be really good with the 2-up ballistic skill on the Avengers Shuriken catapult. Obviously, Shuriken Storm over here is not going to be usable with Overwatch, so that's not really factoring into that decision. But yeah, so let's go over their ploys really quick, and I'll just bring up the Dire Avengers specific ones, or the things that can apply to them. So first, the aspects comes up, because this one is only working on Dire Avengers. You increase the APL of a model. This is a tactical ploy, so when you activate a model, you add 1 to its APL. Now, what's nice about this is it's not at the start of the activation, it's during their activation. So let's say your Exarch charges something and then kills it. After you see that the fight action is going to be successful, then you can pop first to the aspects, because you know that you're going to be out of that combat, and you have an extra APL, so you can move him, or I guess dash him, or, well, no, you won't be able to dash because you charge, but you could then shoot if the opportunity presented itself. So matchless agility, basically you activate it, and when you activate a model, you pop matchless agility, and it can't shoot or fight, but it can move an additional 2 inches on a dash. So, I mean, this is what I mean when I say they have a lot of things to buff their movement and get around the board a little bit faster. Fleet's a really big one for that. This is a strategic play. So, free dash. I mean, a lot of teams have something like this. I think Comrades have the same exact thing, called the same thing. Yeah, I really like Forewarned, because honestly, it seems like, obviously, the Dire Avengers are more of a kind of a consistent, reliable shooting team. I mean, they're not going to knock your socks off with their shooting, but all their offensive outfit, for the most part, outside of the Exarch, is going to be from those Avengers Shuriken catapults, and you're going to be getting in shootouts, and having Forewarned is, I think, a pretty good thing to pop in rounds when you think you're going to be shooting a lot and taking shots back. And then there's Supreme Disdain, which, I mean, this is really not that good for Dire Avengers because they only have 3 attacks. You can use this if you anticipate your Exarch getting into combat, but you're basically only using it for your Exarchs, and it turns a normal hit into a crit, which if you're using a Dire Sword, for instance, you're already going to have a couple crits. I mean, this can get pretty insane, the amount of crits that you're putting out, but it relies on you having more successful hits than your opponent, basically, or I guess less fails than your opponent, which depends on what you're fighting against. It depends on what model you have fighting. Like I said, the Exarch is the one who's going to benefit from this the most, plainly. So yeah, and then as far as equipment goes, there's the weaponized panoply for 1 equipment point. This might be good just because it's only 1 point. It buffs the Dire Avenger melee. Basically, they now have 3-4 instead of 2-3. The problem is, it's still only 3 attacks, which in my opinion is a major weakness in melee. And at the end of the day, 3-4 is an improvement, but it's still nothing really special. The Dire Avenger Exarch can take an Avenger Shrine banner for 2 equipment points. And basically, when a Dire Avenger is visible to and within 3 inches of it, when it comes to controlling an objective marker, you treat the friendly operative's APL as being 1 higher. Yeah, I mean, decent. Again, not really mind-blowing. Ranger Scope doesn't help. Pathfinder Cloak doesn't help. Wraithbone Talisman, this is basically just a free reroll. I personally don't think that these types of equipment pieces are that great. I mean, they're okay. It's once per game. It's a free reroll, but I mean, that's basically balanced, right? You already have rerolls in your shooting. Celestial Shield does not apply. And then there's a Plasma Grenade, which honestly, I think this is probably the best thing you can take with Dire Avengers. If you're playing against a melee team that's you're expecting is going to be able to kind of boss you around and cause issues for you once it gets into combat, you don't really have a reliable answer in close confines except for if you have a Plasma Grenade. So the other nice thing about this is with Fleet, you can move, dash, and shoot. And I mean, this team has a lot of mobility. So you can actually utilize these Plasma Grenades really well, getting up close, chucking a grenade, and then maybe making them think twice about whether or not they actually want to get into melee with you. So, in my opinion, the vast majority of the time, you're going to be going Plasma Grenades. Outside of that, maybe the Wraithbone Talisman once in a while. I would generally avoid the Weaponized Panoply. I don't really think it's going to be that helpful. I mean, it is only 1 point, but I'd rather be putting points into Plasma Grenades or maybe giving the Exarch the Shrine Banner. Or even, I mean, Wraithbone Talisman would be better. Most of the time, though, Plasma Grenades are going to be really strong for you. So, okay, that about wraps it up for this Fire Team breakdown. I hope this is helpful to you guys. I think that Dire Avengers are one of the stronger fire teams that Craft World have available to them, and I think they're one that you're going to see almost every game just because of how strong and how like powerful the weapons that Dire Avenger Exarch gets in melee. Definitely consider running these guys in your Craft World kill teams. Let me know how it goes. Let me know what you thought of this episode. Again, shout out to Bean Doris for nominating this episode on Patreon. If you're listening and you're not subscribed to us, please consider subscribing and clicking that bell. It helps us out so much. And if you're already subscribed, consider following us on Patreon, where then you can nominate some fire teams for us in the future. And yeah, I hope you all have a good one.